So my guest today is George Murray, who's a self-described tenaciously optimistic person. He inspires business owners and professionals to go from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow and hashtag get better. He is a keynote speaker, conducts trainings and workshops on career, job transition, business transformation. And you knew there was a reason he's on the show today. He's the award-winning author of Hired, Cut Your Career Search Time in Half. George, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So, when I saw your background, here you are, a global ops leader working in manufacturing. How did you wind up writing a book about job hunting? And why did you write it?
Well, first of all, we're in career transition our first time, for the most part, in our mid-40s. And it's kind of like a deer in the headlights look, right? There's so many people have gone through this process, but no one actually wrote a book from the time that you left your last job, whether you got fired, reduced in workforce or what have you, to the time that you land. There's a whole things to consider. And so as I went through my first career transition, I realized that there's a bunch of processes. Like an operations guy, there's process steps. No one clearly defined, and that's the reason why I wrote the book. I was so frustrated. So many people had passed this gates, but never wrote the book. So hence I did.
Gotcha. So for you writing the book, what I saw is you had to deal with it twice in pretty short order. So the first time you learned it, the second time you applied it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my first career transition took a lot longer than I expected. Most people feel, hey, with an unemployment rate relatively low, I'm going to find a job really quickly. What I've realized from the data that I found during my first career transition, it took me 13 months, right? So here are my 13 months towards the end, just frustrated. So, and kind of thought about it after the time that I landed. Hey, you know what? If I learned and knew all this stuff ahead of time, I could have cut my time in half. Ironically enough, a year later, I had to actually prove that to be the case. And so the second time, it only took me 5 months. So
excellent. So what's someone's job as a job hunter? Like you're in search, what's your real job there?
Yeah, I mean, what you realize is that, especially for me, a professional or an executive, we're basically delegating a lot of things. The thing is that you cannot delegate job transition. It is your job. You are the CEO of You Incorporated, and you need to be the CEO, the CMO, and at the end of the day, you're the janitor, right? So it's a lot of heavy lifting, right? And I think that's what really frustrates people is this. What do I need to do? How do I need to do it? And in the book, it really tells that kind of day in a life.
Gotcha. And we're going to get to that in just one second. But, folks, I'll just simply say, for those of you who followed me for a while, I've got 2,300 episodes of a podcast and over 7,000 videos at JobSearchTV.com. There's so much detail that goes into a search that no one really knows unless you've lived in this world. George is absolutely right. It's one of these things that you need to know. No one tells you about. You learn through trial and error. And then you wonder, gee, I could have done so many things so much better. And you don't.
I've been there.
Yep. So in the book, you talk about value propositions versus elevator pitches. I'm not a believer in elevator pitches. Ditch the pitch. So yes. What's a value proposition?
So let me tell you, what I realized in my first career transition, I had spent some time in career transition groups because I think it helps a lot of people who are new to the transition to understand people's kind of trial and errors, right? And so what I realize is they're going around, they're giving this elevator pitch, right? And it's literally just like everybody else. It's like, I'm an executive that, that's 20 years of experience with an MBA, wah, wah, wah. You sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? And so as they started coming around, I'm like, I got to sound different than the 7 other operations people, right? So my value proposition is that because we live in an attention deficit society, it's got to be short and sweet and to the point. And it's got to be to the listener, not to what I've actually done. Because I'm going to force the listener to try to, how does that relate to me, right? And so when it came to my turn, I said, well, you know what? I'm a rappel master. Much like my military career, I drop into difficult situations. I quickly assess the group, develop a collaborative strategy, and execute the plan. My team always exceeds the bar. Do you know anybody that needs a rappel master? That's less than 30 seconds. I know that you can come in, quickly assess, set the team in the right direction, all the things that companies want leaders to do, right? So they're really zeroed in. And it's all about what they need and want, not what you can have done in the last 20, 30 years.
And folks, what he's saying here is don't bask in your own magnificence. Connect the dots for people for what you can do for them instead of what, hi, I'm just going to tell you everything about myself. And you should listen there for a half hour at a minimum because I have wonderful things to say about myself. Have I mentioned to you that I'm a really interesting person? And you're not.
Absolutely.
And you're not. So that's what a value proposition is. And like you said, elevator pitches, I hate them. Yeah. I hate them. When I speak to networking groups around the country, I tend to arrive after they do their pitches because I just can't stand listening to these things. They're boring, repetitive, awful. So you talked about a day in the life as part of your process. Tell folks about that, please.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I maybe took too long to learn is that although each day may feel like a month, before 3 months pass by, you haven't really done a lot, right? You look back on it. So, when we left our corporate or our last job, we had a structured day, right? We got up at a certain time, we did certain things. We went to the office, had metrics, we had certain meetings. All that's gone if you don't recreate that yourself. So one of the things that I help clients is that what am I supposed to do hourly, daily, and weekly that's going to get me closer to my goal? And each 3 or 4 weeks, I'm evaluating what's working for me, what's not, what should I try differently? I went on a dare that said, hey, go cold calling. And I'm like, does that really work anymore? And ironically enough, after I reached out to 10 CEOs, now these are a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs, I had 7 respond back to me within a few weeks, which was incredible. But again, it's short and sweet. It's not this 3 or 4 minute message.
Didn't do the monologue, huh? Mm-hmm. So in that day in the life that someone's performing, I think about what someone's job is and the kinds of things they could be doing to keep their mind going. And it's not just simply the calendar and the kind of job search stuff that goes into your calendar. Because there are days, folks, where your calendar is going to be pretty empty.
Yeah.
The guy that I coach who called me up on Monday morning said, I'm looking at my week. I got nothing booked. And, he's wanting me to give him a pat on the back. I said, we'll go back and do some work. Change that. And he called me later in the week to say, okay, got 4 interviews on Friday, 2 on Thursday, and let me get brief me again on interviewing for these kind of roles. And there's other stuff too that people can be doing to keep their minds going before they start going down that rabbit hole of, oh, woe is me. What sort of things did you do to try and keep yourself going?
Yeah, the first 3 months, I was literally lost. Like I said, deer in a headlight. I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? What I'm going to change are the things that I have control of. I can't control whether I'm going to get hired tomorrow or not. It would be great if that happened. But I started looking at it. I was the heaviest I'd ever been. And of course, you could see it, meetings, not eating well and not sleeping well. I made that a focus, part of my focus. In my first career transition, I dropped 40 pounds, right? Now that's going to help with energy, the way I look. Hey, I look in the mirror. Hey, I like that guy, right? And so you start to build your confidence because, again, as long as career transition lasts for people, the longer it happens, it really deteriorates our self-confidence. So you've got to find ways, right? And so I got up in the morning, listened to podcasts, worked out, started awkwardly walking because if I started jogging, I would have died, right? Yeah. But you just build up over time. And those are the things that are going to turn around and help you carry you through.
And you start looking better in a suit.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you weren't saying I'm too sexy for my shirt.
We're going to date ourselves.
I already have. Look, folks, white beard. Anyway, networking. Everyone tells you to network. What kind of networking did you do? What sort of things do you recommend people do?
Well, I was, believe it or not, a very introverted person, right? And so, kind of like when we were growing up, in order for us to learn how to swim, if we got close to the pool, we were thrown in the deep end. Well, introverts aren't going to get close to the pool, right? So you have to figure out a way to wade into the pool, right? And so, part of my process in the book, as well as what I coach, is that how do I start, right? How do I just connect with people that I already know, I feel comfortable with? Because what you're trying to do is what I tell people is you're trying to establish cheerleaders out in the workforce, so that when somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a particular opportunity or somebody with this skill set, the first person they come to, hey, George is out there, I just talked to him and he might want to talk to you.
So that sounds like you encourage people to do touches with folks from their past, to let them know of availability, see how. I'll be you for a second. Hey, how are you? What's going on? Yeah, I'm doing one of those again, and just want to see how you were and reconnect. And if you hear about something related to such and such, try and keep me in mind. Is that what you would say to folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think just I think the thing that's most important for a lot of people who are in networking, who get out, and I actually made this mistake my first time, it's all about me, right? I need a job or whatever. But one of the things that I try to look at, and based on the people I met early on in my career, they set me on a great path. And they say, hey, listen, you know what? Go into the meeting to figure out how you can help them, right? And so even though you may not be, employed, the fact is you've got a lot of skills. You've got a lot of people, so that maybe you're networking with a CFO and they may be looking for an accountant. Hey, you know what? I know those people. And you can introduce to them. And guess what? People are more susceptible of hiring somebody that they know, like, and trust, right? As opposed to taking the guess and getting a resume and hoping for the best. You're providing that introduction. And guess what? You also help them save money on recruiters.
Hey, I'm a former recruiter. Be nice. Be nice. Recruiters are not such bad people, folks.
They're not.
Some are, but most of them
aren't.
At least the ones who've been around for a long time. So branding is advice that people get all the time. Develop a personal brand for yourself. What does that mean?
Well, you know what? My first career transition, I thought brands were for products or companies. I never realized that, you have to create your brand, right? And it's kind of like, company culture. It is what it is until you actually make adjustments in the sale to where you want it to be. And so I actually reached out to a brand specialist, Kathleen Crandall. I mean, I'm sure everybody has other people, but she was so significant in creating who I was and what makes me unique and different. Because again, 7 billion people on this planet, you had well over 144 billion odds that you were born. So there's definitely something unique and different. You got to be able to find and connect your unique and difference to the demand and need out in that workforce.
And how did she identify? I presume she was involved with the Rappel Master suggestion.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, she goes, take a look, take something unique and try to transform it to really makes you unique. I mean, I go through coffee shops, they don't remember my name, but they're like, hey, you're that Rappel Master.
That's interesting. So if you were recommending how someone could identify their own brand, how would you recommend that they do it? And how did you market it for yourself?
Yeah, copyright it, right? I mean, as a matter of fact, I actually helped. Here's an example, prime example. CFO reached out to me. They were looking to go on their own, right? And they said, hey, I need to get a brand. I need to get this pitch or whatever. And come to find out, he was a band coordinator in college and in high school. And I said, well, that's kind of like a CFO, right? They're orchestrating all different type of departments and getting the organization in the right direction, right? He goes, I never thought of it that way. And so it's interesting. He got his first 2 clients when he first met by using that pitch. He goes, George, he goes, not only that, but you know it, you believe it, right? And it comes through in your passion when you're talking about it versus I'm an executive that's got 20 years of experience, MBA. Yeah, exactly.
Sleeper. I was stifling the yawn, folks, for those of you who wind up listening on the podcast version. So the idea is looking for something unique to yourself and then translating it into the workplace as a way of trying to differentiate yourself and what you might say about yourself so people can connect with you.
Absolutely. I mean, ironically enough, one gentleman I was outreaching, we talked, our first 20-minute networking was just about our family and relationships, right? And over a period of time, he and I have exchanged introductions of executives back and forth. It's a relationship. It's not just a one and done, right? And you need to make sure that your value proposition is insightful for people that says, hey, you know what? I can relate to that, right?
And they can understand it too. Part of that is, for example, in the person that you coached, I was a band leader in school. In other words, I orchestrated results so an audience would enjoy themselves. And like you with the Rappel Master, you tied it into something professionally so that people would get it. And with that, be able to remember you.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's how I got my last role at the CEO when we got to the final. He goes, you know what, George? And I remember his response when I actually gave him that pitch. He goes, you know what? I don't know what a Rappel Master does, but it sounds like I need one.
Interesting. So in your case, you identify this one, or with support, you identify this one quality and zeroed in on it and translated it into a way that served the people that you would be working with. Got it.
Absolutely.
Good. So much I want to cover. Let me back up for a second, because you did something that you mentioned here that people don't do anymore, and that was cold calling.
Yeah.
Why do you think it worked for you?
Because I targeted specific people that were kind of, would potentially be looking for my skill set. The job may not be posted. And again, a lot of times, I think it's more than 70% of jobs are through networking, right? So it's really in your best interest to network with the right folks. The other thing and I actually did it on a dare, right? One of the people I was talking in career transition, I'm like, I'll do it just to kind of pacify you. I was actually shocked. He just said, you know what, George, just make sure your message is clear and concise. So when I got through the networking and connected and left a message, it was short and sweet. It was, you know what, dear CEO, I'm a recently transitioning executive where I took a company from 100 to 180 million in 18 months. I'm looking to network with a medium to large business community. Would love your advice. Click. And one of a Fortune 200 company guys called me 2 days later. I was shocked. He goes, George, I just want to know more how you did that in such a short period of time. So it's a taste of the cake, not the total ingredients.
Taste of the cake. I love that. That's going to be the title of the show. So there's so much in the book, and folks, it's not a big read, and there's a lot packed in there. So what are the big takeaways that you would suggest people pay attention to?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I always try to tell people, I'm a simple guy. I'm an Army guy. We're taught that things got to be learned quickly when you're getting fired, right, on the line. And that's hence the book, right? It's 136 pages. I'm a slow reader. It takes me 2 days to read the book, and I've read it a couple of times, right? But that's the intent, really. It's supposed to be a reference. But to me, it's really just energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude, always. I think to your earlier comment, right? It's not doing it 12 hours a day until you literally run out of gas, because again, it'll come off, and that really throws people off. So you want to show up your genuine vested person, right? And so there's times when you need to take time off, and that's okay. I think that's one of the things that we fail to understand in career transition. Just like a job, it is a job. Take some time off, even if it's Friday afternoons, and go for a walk, take the family out, what have you. The second thing out of the three is really that day in the life. Structure day in the life, evaluate it, make adjustments, make changes, what's working, what's not working, do some brainstorming. To me, everything was a disciplined process. I'm an Army guy, a Lean Six Sigma guy. So to me, it's all about process and evaluating the process and the rewards. And so every Saturday morning, every 3 weeks, I would, from 7:35 to 8:15, I would basically, what's working, what's not working, what can I actually do, brainstorming. And that set my next couple of weeks up, right? And then the third and final thing I tell people, your personal board advisors. These are 3 to 5 people that can help you, they can guide you. And they also hold you accountable to say, hey, you know what, George, you've been crying about this for 3 days. Man up, get out there and stop, and get out there, right? So those are the 3 things I'd say is very important.
And that board of advisors, how did you find them? How did you identify the right people for you?
Well, first and foremost, you don't want to have 5 operations. In my case, 5 operations people, because they'll be like, hey, let's go off the edge, right? To me, it's really people that, different walks, different, I had a marketing person. I actually had a LinkedIn expert. I had what I would call an energy coach. This would be somebody, when you get that dreaded thanks, but no thanks letter on a Friday, and you have nobody to call, you can call this person, and literally in 5-10 minutes, you're on cloud 9 and ready to attack the day. And you need those people because, again, your significant other is basically, hey, what's all this coffee talking, this networking? When are you actually going to submit jobs and go for interviews, right? You need to turn around and use that because you can't give it to that spouse or significant other. They've already have a lot of stress.
And their worry is going to take them down.
Yeah.
And you need their support in order to do the kind of things that you want to do. And that's not a gender thing. This isn't about men relying upon women. It's women relying upon men, women relying upon women, men relying upon men. The spouse, the partner starts to worry too much. And then they start asking the questions of, hey, how's it going? And you dread that question.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's so damaging to hear that question. You start wondering, what am I doing wrong? And then you start thinking of lying to them. True?
Yeah. No. I mean, the good thing is that, my wife is extremely supportive, but again, you get those dreaded, how's your day going? I mean, my wife would, basically tell me quite often, what about all these coffee meetings? That's called a lot of expense. What is this all gathering us? I'm like, babe, this particular process works. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Just have a little faith.
So, we've got an interesting economy going on right now. Yeah. I saw the jobs report today. A lot of jobs got filled. 600,000, 649,000. We're recording this at the beginning of March 2022. And then I went to look at the report, and 2/3 of them were part-time.
Yeah.
That isn't in the headline. You have to actually read it to find that out. So is this going to work in this kind of economy? Is this the kind of thing? Is this an economy where people who are professionals or veteran individuals, skilled labor, are going to be able to apply this and be able to land?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you an example, my first 2 career transitions from 13 months to 5 months. And then I just actually had a career transition recently post-pandemic. And I want to tell you, 35 days from the time that I left, did all the networking and process, I had actually 3 offers. So that actually even works even better. You apply it, but it's heavy lifting, right? And I think that's the thing. If you haven't been in career transition 5-10 years, the game has changed, and you've got to be able to turn around and do a lot of that heavy lifting. You can't delegate it.
How do you think the game has changed?
Well, I think the fact is you've got to now, a lot less people are not willing to do that face to face. So you've got to have the technology. You got to make sure that you've got a great background and it's not distracting. All those things are in the book, right? To put you in the best foot forward, whether you're in a hybrid situation, face-to-face, or what have you.
Terrific. George, how can people find out more about you, the work that you do, the book?
Well, they can go to my website. It's georgeclaystonmurray.com.
Could you spell it, please?
Yes, GeorgeClaystonMurray.com. I'm on Amazon, and you can also check me out, follow me on LinkedIn, because I actually have a LinkedIn Live event the first and third Saturday of every month, and it's always an opportunity to help businesses and professionals get better.
Super. If memory serves me right, there's a little bit of a discount that people get if they use a link at your website versus buying it on Amazon. Am I right about that?
That's correct. 15% off.
All right. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes. George, thank you. And folks, we'll be back soon with much, much more. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. Hope you enjoyed today's interview. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, share it, do something that lets people know it was worthwhile. Also want to mention, visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us. There's a ton there in the blog that'll help you. You can also find out about my books and guides to job hunting, the courses I offer. There's just a lot there that'll help you. Plus, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, schedule time for coaching. It's all available through the site. I'd love to help you. And if this isn't the right time, just put that web address in your phone, thebiggamehunter.us. My name, Jeff Altman. Maybe in the notes field, you put the term job search blog. So this way you can find me in the future. Lastly, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. I hope you have a terrific day. And most importantly, be great. Take care.